Tottenham are preparing a formal approach for Feyenoord manager Arne Slot as the Dutch club prepare for key talks this Wednesday, where Slot's agent Rafael Pimenta is expected to tell them that the manager wants the move to Tottenham. Hello and welcome back to Matt Hayes' Tottenham Blog and to another update on Arne Slot. It's been a very, very busy day with updates from the English and Dutch media about who Tottenham's next manager could potentially be, and it does look as though we have identified our number one target and we are closing in on a move to appoint him to replace Antonio Conte. We've got plenty to go through today, like I said, with so much coming out from the English and Dutch media. We look at some of the background behind Tottenham's formal approach it is coming up and what we can expect to see happening over the course of the week with, like I mentioned, Feyenoord set for crucial talks on Wednesday with Arne Slot's agent Rafael Pimenta, where it is expected he will tell them that the manager wants out and he wants to make that move, the next step in his career, to the Premier League and to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Before we do get into all of that, if you are new to the channel, please do make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more updates on Slot over the next couple of weeks, and of course plenty on Tottenham's transfer business throughout the summer as we look set to have an unrecognisable squad in the Premier League next season. But before we do get into the transfers, before we do get into the updates on our technical director, we do need to take a look at what is coming out about Arne Slot, and it looks as though it's now only a matter of time before Slot becomes the Spurs manager, and it's Charlie Eccleshare today who has told us that Tottenham are preparing a formal approach to Feyenoord manager, or to Feyenoord for Arne Slot. And there were some quotes that came out from one of Feyenoord's directors over the last couple of days where he said that an offer had not yet been made, but he effectively said they were. Apologies, the agent is a woman. I didn't realise that. But she effectively said, or the director effectively said, there was no official approach, but kind of didn't deny that there was interest in the manager, and also saying that with the interest from Leeds back in February as well when they sacked Jesse Marsch, but that formal approach should be coming very, very soon. Eccleshare also said that the Dutch manager has moved into pole position for the job over the last week, ahead of other candidates including Roberto De Zerbi and Luis Enrique. And there were so many names that have been thrown about throughout the duration of this managerial search. You know, Julian Nagelsmann's name came back into consideration apparently over the last couple of days, which we will dispel those rumours a little bit later in the video. But of course, De Zerbi and Enrique, some big names with Ange Postecoglou and Ruben Amorim over the last couple of days also being mentioned as names that were still in the running. But it does seem as though it is Arne Slot that is the number one choice. Eccleshare continues to say that Tottenham have been looking for a candidate who can institute cultural change at the club, bringing every aspect of the club back together and re-energising the style of play. So this shortcut that Daniel Levy has been looking for with the last couple of appointments, with excluding Nuno Espirito Santo, but with Jose Mourinho and Antonio Conte, the way I've always looked at that is he's trying to bring in managers who can win us a trophy in the hope that those victories will change the philosophy at the football club. But it looks like he is finally realising that isn't how it works, and you need to get that philosophy, you need to get that culture within the team, within the dressing room, and then potentially look on to a bit of silverware. And that seems to be the way we're going with the direction for this this manager. And the word we all love to hear, the phrase we all love to hear, is re-energising the style of play. We've been promised it so often by Daniel Levy in every end of season message over the last couple of years, but hopefully this is the appointment that can bring that attractive style of play to us. And if you haven't seen, I did a video looking at Arne Slot's style of play, his tactics, his philosophies and everything. Make sure to check that out after this video if you haven't seen that yet. Eccleshare, just giving a bit of background on this managerial search, said the lengthy process started in early March when Fabio Paratici drew up a list of candidates before Antonio Conte had even left the club. Of course, Paratici no longer at the club himself, but this search has gone on for well over 2 months now. This entire process from drawing up that first list of candidates to where we are now with Slot as the number one choice. Dan Kilpatrick has said, of the Evening Standard, has said that Arne Slot is open to becoming Tottenham's new manager. He's understood to be keen on the move, and according to a report, which is a number of reports in the Netherlands, he has already gone as far as to tell his agent that he wants to join Tottenham. Sami Mokbel from the English side telling us about that meeting that is set with Feyenoord on Wednesday, saying that it is understood a key meeting is planned between the Dutch club and Slot agent Rafaela Pimenta later this week. Josh King with the super chat, the £2, says hiring a manager before the new director of football levied. And Josh, thank you very much for the super chat. That is something that I do want to touch on, and that we will be looking at later in the video. I tweeted about it earlier. All along we've kind of been told that we're going to get a new director of football, or managing director, sporting director, whatever it is. I mean, the the structure has changed a little bit with Scott Munn's appointment as chief football officer. But whatever it is, it's essentially ahead of the recruitment team. And now it looks like we might be getting that manager before this director comes in, or are we in a position where Tottenham know who that director is and are just getting all the bits in place before the window opens and so on. Mokbel has also said that Feyenoord are resigned to Pimenta, informing them Slot wants to leave for Tottenham during talks on Wednesday. And it was Sky Sports who reported it last Friday as well, that the club are becoming increasingly resigned to the fact that Slot will want to leave and go to N17 this summer. The expectation is for Tottenham to formalise their interest with Feyenoord once they are informed of Slot's intention to depart. And look, there's a number of reasons why there has to be a domino effect here, and why step one needs to come before step two and step three and step four. The main one, I think, is from Arne Slot's perspective, and I spoke a lot about this in that analysis video I did, and Alistair Gold touched on it in his video yesterday as well. But his departure from AZ Alkmaar back in 2021 came because he started negotiating behind their backs with Feyenoord, and that is something that the club did not take very kindly to, and essentially sacked him in December of his second season in charge when they were in a title race. So they didn't take kindly to the way Slot went about that at all. So it does look as though the manager wants to do things in the right way, but also he is under contract, and there are certain things that Tottenham need to follow, and certain laws that need to be adhered to. So this may be a bit of a tedious, kind of drawn out process as every piece of the jigsaw falls into place before Tottenham can, like Mokbel says, formalise their interest in the manager. But it looks like the wheels are fully in motion now, and it is just a matter of time before things start to fall into place. With regard to the compensation that Tottenham will have to pay Feyenoord, of course, there's 2 years left on Arne Slot's contract with the Rotterdam-based club. Samuel Mokbel has said that Tottenham face paying Feyenoord over the anticipated £6 million compensation fee to make Arne Slot their new head coach. So the fee that has been thrown about all along is that it would cost £6 million to buy Arne Slot out of his contract. However, that is looking to be higher, according to Mokbel, as Tottenham have plans to appoint two of his trusted aides, who are Marino Pusic and Sitke Hulsov, two of Slot's assistant coaches that we want to bring to London now. His actual assistant manager of Feyenoord, whose name I can't think of at the moment, said last week that he wouldn't follow Slot to Tottenham, but he is someone who was at Feyenoord before the Dutch manager, and someone who, as he says, will be there long after. But two of Slot's trusted aides are looking to potentially be coming with him to join Spurs, with, of course, Antonio Conte's coaching staff having initially survived the sacking of Antonio Conte at the back end of March, left with Christian Stellini, with the exception of Gianni Vio, who's still the set-piece coach. The rest of them did leave with Christian Stellini following that embarrassment at Newcastle. Sky Sports have also spoken about those talks between Feyenoord and Slot's agent, saying that Arne Slot's representative, Raffaele Pimenta, is set for talks this week for Feyenoord over Tottenham's interest, which is increasing, and Slot is keen on the move. Arne Slot's agent is set to tell Feyenoord he wants to speak to Tottenham and discuss how to get him out of his Feyenoord contract. And an extra line there from Sky Sports that Tottenham are determined to get Feyenoord boss Arne Slot to become their next manager. So he stepped to the front of the queue in the last week or so, and it doesn't look like that is going to change unless Tottenham are forced to change it, at which point we'll probably get the line that he was never a target anyway. Looking at the Dutch side of things, the Telegraph were a fantastic source, and one that was on the ball all throughout Steven Bergwijn's move to Ajax. They've said that Arne Slot has reportedly told his agent Raffaele Pimenta that he wants to move to Tottenham. Slot's agent will discuss his future in a meeting with Feyenoord on Wednesday. With regards to the compensation and what Tottenham will have to do to get Slot out of Feyenoord, Tottenham must negotiate with Feyenoord if they choose to appoint Arne Slot as their head coach this summer, as there is no clause allowing him out of that contract this summer. So it does. There are some reports that are saying there is a release clause in Arne Slot's contract, but that is for next summer, so for the summer of 2024. Now, whether that contract will change anytime soon is unknown, because Feyenoord are offering Slot a lot more money to try and convince him to stay. We know with the way these contracts work, there could be a clause in there that Feyenoord can just extend by a year. Or they can, there could be some pre-agreed clause that could change things in there. But at the moment, that release clause does not come into effect until next summer, so it is effectively useless within any negotiations Tottenham will have this time round. The Telegraph also say it has become clear to all parties that Arne Slot will leave if the negotiations between Tottenham and Feyenoord go well. And if you're looking at the amount of money that Tottenham have spent on managers since the departure of Mauricio Pochettino, probably including the departure of Mauricio Pochettino, I think £6 million plus maybe another one or two for those coaches is not a lot of money. And Slot, the doubling of his wages to keep him at Feyenoord is expected to be around £3 million. So I think financially it doesn't happen very often, but Tottenham are very much the powerhouse in these negotiations, and whatever money is needed, I think Tottenham will be more than happy and more than capable of producing that to get the man that they want. 1908, a Feyenoord source have said that Feyenoord wants to know on Wednesday whether Arne Slot will leave the club or not. So in his pre-game press conference for the victory against FCM and at the weekend, last Friday, Slot had said that just that morning he was discussing with the club plans for the upcoming summer transfer window and the players they might want to bring in. So it's only fair that the club want clarity on whether or not Slot will be the head coach there next season. The head coach throughout the summer transfer window to possibly change the plans that they have in place. Slot has also called for clarity in some quotes over the last couple of days as well, which we'll get into very, very shortly. AD Sportwereld, another Dutch source, have said that Arne Slot's agent will be in Rotterdam on Wednesday to discuss his future. Some quotes directly from Feyenoord and from Dennis te Kloze, one of the directors at Feyenoord, about the future of Arne Slot. He said he still has 2 years left on his contract. That has been said before, and we have not been approached by any club. Last year, we spoke extensively with Arne Slot and his management about the contract extension. Certain things have been agreed there. Potentially that might be where some pre-agreed clauses in place. In February, there was already interest from a club from England, Leeds United, but we said no to that. Arne did not want to go there himself. If there is interest, a club must report to us and then we will think about it. The same goes for players, but he still has a contract and there are no clauses in it this summer. So we assume that he will remain trainer of Feyenoord. So just like Arne Slot, te Kloze is staying very, very diplomatic in his quotes and knowing that everything he says will be dissected by Spurs fans and by the English media. But confirming that there's no clause there, but there could be something that a Feyenoord might be able to do, even if it's just to make it a little bit more difficult for Spurs to get the move done or to take a couple of extra £1 million out of Spurs. Fabrizio Romano has said that Slot remains a concrete option. He's another front runner, and Gary Jacob has said as well that Slot is keen to join Tottenham if offered the chance. Former Spurs player Rafael van der Vaart, who I'm sure we all know does a lot of work on Dutch television with football punditry and stuff like that. He confirmed he was actually asked by the club what he thought about Arne Slot. So he said, "I do know Tottenham really want him. They asked what I thought of him. You know what I think of him. He squeezed out the maximum. Feyenoord is so stable. Even today, after they found out and partied all week." So I think what he's referring to there is their victory against Go Ahead Eagles last Sunday, so 8 days ago, to wrap up the Eredivisie title. They partied all week and still went out and swept FCM in a side with the uncertainty around their manager's future hanging over their heads as well. Van der Vaart also said, very green light, as in I gave Spurs the green light. Tottenham is a club I have been in for 2 years and I have a good relationship with them. They just miss a good coach and a coach who plays the fun football Tottenham always stood for. So Van der Vaart, only 2 years at the club, but he really, really gets what we're about. He thinks Slot is the man to bring that football back that we all want. The quotes directly from Slot, like I mentioned, there's some before the game, some after the game against FCM, and he said, "My departure can also be good for the club." Joachim, thank you very much for subscribing. "My departure can also be good for the club, but if there is no dream club, I will stay. In football, it is commonplace that you talk to clubs. I am not saying that I have done it now, but it is not forbidden that I talk to other clubs." So I think he's maybe alluding to the fact there that there could be something in his contract once he makes his desire to leave known that he can go and speak to other clubs. There's definitely, there can be something in the contract that forbids the manager to speak to another club or forbids a player to speak to another club if they are interested in a transfer move, where Slot is saying that he is allowed to talk to other clubs, but again, does want to do this the right way, which I think is of course the best way to do it. It's hard to say anything when there isn't much to say. Dennis, the director, has indicated that no club has reported. Ron, thank you very much for subscribing. He also said, "I'm under a huge magnifying glass in everything I say about this subject, so I choose to say as little as possible again. When it comes to new clubs, there's a huge scale in every word I use, so I try not to talk about it until I can say something about it." So again, just keeping his cards close to his chest, because with Spurs especially, you never know what way things are going to go, where with negotiations between the two clubs, as much as he can sit there and say that he wants this move and think the club will allow it, it could fall through at any point, and you only have to ask Paulo Fonseca about what Tottenham can do in the middle of negotiations. Again, although Fabio Paratici has since left the club. And I think even continuing on that point, I and so many of the Tottenham fans were so impressed with how Slot held himself in the press conferences when he was asked time and time again the same question, different phrasing of the same question, trying to force something out of him to put on the front pages. But he held himself very, very well, was so respectful to the club he's at, also respectful to the club that he wants to join and to the fans of either side as well. He went on to say, I just have an ongoing contract. I don't understand why I always find so much about it. With Orkun, which is Orkun Kukçu, the Feyenoord captain, who Tottenham are reportedly interested in bringing to North London with the manager. With Orkun, they can also report up to 2 or 3 weeks before the deadline. That also happens with the trainer, doesn't it? And then Slot called for clarity on the situation. He said, I also prefer that clarity comes quickly, and I also prefer that it is good for all parties. So I think everyone involved here will want the situation to be clarified as quickly as possible for Tottenham to know what manager they're going to have for the upcoming season, the upcoming window, for Slot to know what club he needs to fix, and for Feyenoord, of course, to know who's going to be their next head coach after just their second Eredivisie title of the century. A few points I want to touch on that are kind of concerns for me within this whole thing. Before I do get into that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, I'm closing in on 16,000 subscribers, which is a lot more than I had 4 weeks ago. So we're currently at 15,926. So we're just 74 subscribers away from 16,000. If you haven't yet subscribed, please do so if you're enjoying the content, and hit that notification bell as well so you get notified every time I go live. There's 290 of you watching, and the YouTube analytics tell me that 50% of you aren't subscribed. So if 50% of you did subscribe, we'd hit that target straight away. But yeah, so a couple of points I wanted to touch on. I put a tweet out a couple of hours ago, and I said, I not that I was concerned, but I think we need to be wary of how Slot's career has gone so far. And with Twitter, it's 280 characters. It's so difficult to almost impossible to get a nuanced opinion and take into those tweets. But what I said was, before all this happens with Arne Slot, before he even comes in as our manager, thank you, McCanny Blocks, for subscribing. Before he even comes in as our manager, we need to be aware of how this could go. And look, I hope it's successful. All 300 of you watching hopes it's successful. All 14,000 people who follow me on Twitter hopes it's successful. But we need to be aware of what could happen. So when he was at AZ Alkmaar, he fought for the title that first season. Again, I went into more depth in this in my analysis video if you haven't seen that yet. Was level on points with Ajax at the end of his first season, was cancelled by COVID. He was second in the table when he was sacked in his second season. With Feyenoord in his first season, comfortably finished third, which was their best finish in a bit, and then won the league this season. But he turned his back on Alkmaar when things were going well, went into negotiations with Feyenoord, ended up getting sacked by Alkmaar and taking that job. And now with Feyenoord, after winning the league, he's turning their back on them, and he's taking the move to Spurs. And look, of course, there are positives to take from that when a manager is coming into your club. He's clearly ambitious. He clearly wants to be at Tottenham. This is a club that he wants to manage. It's what he thinks is a very good step in his career. But I think we just need to be wary of how his career has gone so far and how easily he can jump ship and move to the next club. Now, if you said to me we had two options, where one was he's sacked in 18 months' time because things aren't going well, or the other is he leaves to go to Real Madrid in 2 years' time because things went so well, of course I'm going to take that second option. Of course I want things to go well in the short term, regardless of what that might mean for a manager's future. But I just think we need to be wary that he can leave at any point. And I know there's not a lot of loyalty in football, but there is some, and it's so easy when things are going well for your team that you get drawn into thinking that, oh well, of course our manager's loyal, of course our top scorers are loyal. You know, for so long we thought, yeah, Kane, he'll spend his career at Spurs. We thought, you know, Mauricio Pochettino wouldn't go to Chelsea. We thought he'd never leave us. He might have been in negotiations with Real Madrid and Man United during his time at Tottenham. It's, for me, it absolutely wasn't. I'm not saying this in, oh, we need to stay away from him, or oh, he's not a good option or anything like that, because he can be. He might not be loyal, but it's just, let's just be wary and realise that at some point it might come to the fact that he might walk away from this club. We just need to be ready for that. That is all I'm saying in that. But I do think it is a point worth making. Jared, thank you very much for subscribing, and I apologise for the background noise. The other thing I wanted to speak about, and we touched on it earlier in the video, was the fact that we don't have a director. We don't have a director of football or sporting director, technical director, whatever you want to call it. We don't have a replacement for Fabio Paratici right now. And I don't think that's a good way to. I don't think it's good to get our manager in before we get that director in, because we need stability at this club. We need a plan. We need a philosophy. We need an overriding structure that is in place regardless of who the manager is. And this is what we've been lacking in the last couple of years with the kind of with this mix and match of different appointments. And with the fact that we've had such different managers, recruitment has been so different. The players that have been brought in have been so different. And right now, this Tottenham squad, while it does have some incredible individual footballers, it's not a team. It's not a squad. It's not a group of 11, 18, 25 players that together can go and do something successful. Whereas if we had, let's just imagine we brought in a director of football 4 years ago when Pochettino was sacked, and this director wanted to play. He wanted to play a 4-2-3-1. He wanted a team that presses from the front. He wants a team that gives a chance to youth. He wanted attacking fullbacks. Those were the 4 pillars of what he wanted in his team. Let's say he brought in manager A, didn't quite work out, sacked manager A. He'd then bring in manager B, who plays football the same way and can work with what is already there. And it might not be ideal for him. He might need to get rid of Pedro Porro and get in, Lucas Klosterman instead, that kind of thing. But it's a similar type of manager who can work with a similar group of players. Manager B doesn't work out. He's sacked after 3 months, like Nuno was. Bringing manager C, but again, I don't want to drag that on too much, but I think you know what I'm saying. That once you have a director of football who is in charge of the footballing operations, who isn't Daniel Levy, who doesn't know how to run the football operations, you have that structure and you have that platform that, instead of trying to pick a manager to change everything, you're picking a manager to fit with what you've already worked on and this kind of core structure that's already in place. So if we're now bringing in Arne Slot before we bring in this director of football, we might end up bringing in a director that doesn't like Slot's formation or doesn't like the kind of age range or the average age of his squad. He wants maybe a more experienced squad. And then, as I was about to move on to, as Adrian makes a very good point, there may already be an agreement to bring in a director of football, which is something that we will have to keep a close eye on over the coming days and coming weeks, because a lot of Tottenham's pursuit of a director of football or sporting director, whatever you want to call it, has gone on behind the scenes. Dennis Toklosa, who we'll touch on in a minute, the Feyenoord director, has himself said that he turned down an offer from Tottenham, which hadn't been reported on. I don't think there's any report of interest in him, but there's been so many names that have been mentioned, like Thiago Pinto, like Jordi Cruyff, like there's one at Bayern. Basically any director you can think of, we have been linked to him. So hopefully there is something going on behind the scenes there, and there is a director ready to step into that position, which won't be the same as Fabio Paratici's position. The structure has changed with Scott Munn coming in as the chief football officer. But look, let's hope something is close there, because if we're going to be making the same mistakes we've made for the last 4 years before we even get this manager in place, we're off to a very, 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 very dodgy start. On Dennis Toklosa, he said himself that he has rejected an offer from Tottenham to join the board. He said, "I will not deny that an offer has been made, but I will say right away that it has not made me consider picking up and moving with the family. I came to Feyenoord to build something beautiful, and we all do that together. We are well on our way and want to achieve even more. It would be strange to stop at Feyenoord so soon. I immediately wanted to be honest this weekend when I was confronted with the interests of Tottenham, but I had already dealt with it myself. I was able to clarify immediately." For me, there was a bit of concern that maybe Tottenham's move for Slot was a double swoop, and if we weren't going to get to Klose, that maybe we wouldn't want Slot as well, but that doesn't seem to be the case. It looks like Slot was the man we went in for, and we kind of offered to Klose the chance to come with him, but that's not going to be happening. Now onto Julian Nagelsmann, who I want to speak about very, very briefly, because on Saturday there was some report that came out from Duncan Castles of the Times, who said that Julian Nagelsmann is back in the running to be the next Tottenham Hotspur manager, but the German wants assurances over the club's next sporting director. Nagelsmann is understood to have recommended candidates for the sporting director job to Daniel Levy, the Tottenham chairman. Now, it is believed at this point those reports are very wide of the mark. Excuse me, understandably, Spurs fans got extremely excited, and even part of me was thinking Duncan Castles isn't reliable, but what if he's right this time? We all got a little bit excited about that. It does seem to be at this point, like I said, completely wide of the mark. Alistair Gold has said that Tottenham continue to insist that there is nothing in the reports regarding Spurs and Julian Nagelsmann. And if you haven't watched Alistair Gold's video from yesterday, I would recommend that you do go and check it out, because he gave some fantastic insight and fantastic background on why you get differing stories from different sides in the media. And he said that the language that is used is so important. It's all semantics, and he kind of touched on this report. And he said, when he says Tottenham continue to insist there is nothing in the reports, that's him being told by Tottenham that that's happening, and he's just reporting this is what Tottenham has said. Whereas if he came out and said there is nothing in the reports, that means that he's actually looked into that himself, and that is information that he can corroborate and he can back. Whereas when he's saying that Tottenham continue to insist this, that purely is the line coming out from the club. We know Tottenham, how they like to spin the PR in the media. And Gold also spoke about the language about offers being rejected. And while Tottenham are coming out and saying that, Nagelsmann was never a target, never met with him, blah, blah, blah. We said we never met with Nagelsmann, but we know for a fact that Tottenham did speak with Nagelsmann's representatives. So while it is technically correct that they're saying we have not met with Nagelsmann, it's giving a false kind of portrayal of the situation in a way that is technically correct, but makes them look the best that they can out of something that clearly went wrong for them. And the same with some German reports saying that Nagelsmann turned Tottenham down. The kind of description Alistair Gold used for that was, if someone walked up to you in the street and said, would you consider accepting £1 million for your house? And you said no, you might then go to someone and say, I just rejected £1 million offer for my house. But then if someone goes back to this first person and says, oh, I heard you had an offer rejected, well, I didn't. I just asked if he was interested in that amount. So it seems very just so particular, and it is completely semantics, but it's a very, very interesting background from obviously someone who's worked in this space for so long on what actually happens and what you need to actually take from certain reports. I think this Nagelsmann situation is the perfect situation to actually to give that description. Fabrizio Romano also spoke about it. He said negotiations between Nagelsmann and Tottenham have not resumed at this stage. No changes. He'd only consider the job with the support of sporting director, and that is an important point. Maybe less so when you're looking at like Adrian said there might be a director of football already in place to bring in Arne Slot. But assuming for a second that there isn't, we might get in a director of football next week who could turn around and say, well, his number one choice is Julian Nagelsmann. So at the moment, Nagelsmann to Tottenham is not on, but that could change. So it's impossible to say for definite that it's off, A, in football, B, especially with Tottenham, but C, in such a fluid situation when we don't know who the director is going to be. It could be Ralph Rangnick in a week time, and he's going to try and push for Nagelsmann to get that job. So at the moment, there's no Nagelsmann to Tottenham, but that could change depending on who the director is. Romano also said that Nagelsmann wanted a director of football to be together with him. In the end, Tottenham decided not to proceed with that and go with a different idea to choose a director and then a manager. And just quickly on Ruben Amorim as well. Record Portugal has said that Ruben Amorim has assured his players that he will stay at Sporting this summer. So a lot of options seemingly falling out of Tottenham's line of sight. It looks as though Arne Slot is the man that they want. It looks as though Arne Slot is the man who wants to come to Tottenham. It's going to be an interesting pursuit to see just how things go down, and also just seeing the reaction not only of Tottenham fans but of rival fans and of rival clubs to see how much do people actually rate this manager? How much do people even know about this manager? I think is the big question. If you don't know much about him, and I assume a few of you have watched the video already, but if you haven't, I did an analysis. It's 10 days ago at this point of Arne Slot. I looked at his history in management, the tactics that he played at Alkmaar and Feyenoord, but I did it a little bit differently, where I looked at the current Tottenham squad and how they'd work with those tactics. There's 360 if you're watching right now. If you haven't already, I would recommend you go check that out. I just dropped the link in the chat. On the way out, do make sure to hit that like button. Let's see how many we're on. We have 94 likes with 370 of you watching, so I'm sure we can get that number to 150 before we do finish up here. And do make sure to subscribe as well. Like I said, close to 16,000 subscribers. We're on 15,933 at the moment, so just 67 of you need to do exactly like Richard just did. Hit that subscribe button on your way out, and we can smash that number hopefully today. But I'll patiently wait if that doesn't happen. Thank you to everyone who has joined. It's been a fantastic stream, as it quite often is, with this incredible community we have here. Peter said the video you made is good. Thank you very much, Peter. There's been 1,000 of you joining throughout the stream in the middle of a Monday afternoon. I'm sure there's other things you'd rather be doing. So thank you very, very much for tuning in. Like, comment, subscribe. But for me, for now, and as always, thank you for watching.